Just kind of waiting for some more folks that said they were going to be coming. Actually, there's some more folks now. So I'm going to be introducing Scribble for those of you that don't know us. Thanks a lot for being here. It's our first press conference ever, so we're really excited and feel honored to have you here with us. We're going to be talking about a little bit about our background and what Scribble is and what we do. And then more importantly, probably what you're really interested in is what we launched today. Literally, I think it's about an hour old. We just flipped the switch. So we just went live with Scribble for iPad, which we'll talk about and do a quick demo of. So just for background, we're a fairly young startup. We actually just launched the public beta in May of last year, and we actually are providing a service that's meant to make it much easier for people to do research online. And what I mean by research is information collection generally on the web, and we have some sort of examples or sorts of things that we can show you that will make it clear what exactly it is that we're talking about, but you'll get a sense of it as we go through it. So basically, the area that we're focusing on is what people do on the web today when they find something valuable that they want to get back to, right? We all spend time on the web today. We all look for information. We're all looking for stuff that we want to get back to if it's really valuable. And generally speaking, these are the kinds of things that people do, right? When you find something on the web, you might bookmark it, you might print it out, etc. And the issue is, of course, that these are sort of old ways of working, right? These are all things people have done for about a decade and a half. And we're looking for new ways of working, given the fact that more and more content is online these days. So I'm sure you've all done these various things. We do them as well. And this was actually data that was produced by an organization or a group that was funded by the National Science Foundation, working on a project called Keeping Found Things Found. So I won't go through the numbers, but I'm sure you can relate to those activities. The problem that we generally solve is how do you basically annotate web content, and how do you get back to content that's really important that you research and find on the web. So generally speaking, when you ask that question, what is it that people do today? These are the kinds of answers you get, right? People will, for example, print paper out so they can basically mark it up by hand. The problem there, of course, is you have to manage a physical file. Other people, of course, are doing things like copying and pasting really important content into Microsoft Word. And the problem there, of course, is that you end up not only having to deal with a physical file, which is a problem, but then also formatting problems that happen as a result of copying content from a browser, for example, into a word processor. And then, of course, other folks are actually doing things like emailing articles or links to articles that are really important into emailing them to themselves or to their colleagues, and you're putting your comments in all caps or different colors and whatnot, and it basically is hard to work with because the person that's receiving the email has to flip back and forth between the email they received from you and the article that you're referencing when you're making your comments in the email. So basically, for a long time now, we've felt that it's really difficult to be able to manage and work with web content in the browser. And that's the inspiration behind starting Scribble. And actually, anecdotally, I guess it's worth mentioning that this was actually one of the things that was really important to me personally when I was coming out of grad school. So that was part of the inspiration for starting the company. We're hoping that, frankly, our service will not only help folks that, like you and consumers in general, but specifically people that are in education and school, and we have some content that will explain why that is. So just at a very high level, to describe kind of how our general system works, not necessarily the tablet version that we're going to be launching today, but just generally the web version that we launched in May. There's sort of a couple of different components that you would experience and you would use, and I recommend you all sign up for and try out because I think you'll benefit from it. One is the toolbar, and this is something that basically you would use with any web page on the internet. The toolbar would allow you to actually annotate web content. You can highlight pages, you can add notes to any part of the page, and then you can save that annotated research. So the toolbar gives you the tools to be able to do those things. And then there's your personal library. So the personal library is the area where basically you log on online to have a repository of all the content that's important to you. We full text index all the content, so when you log in, you can basically quickly find what you need, like a needle in a haystack, like you do, for example, in Gmail. And what we're going to be having coming in the future are shareable libraries. So we can talk about this during Q&A if anybody's interested, but what we have today is basically a free version that is really meant for an individual user. That is a version that you can use that has a personal library. But in the future, we're going to be looking at releasing versions that have shareable libraries that groups of people can potentially use or an individual can use for different projects they might be working on. If you're looking for a job, if you're working on a home improvement project, etc. Or if you happen to be working in an organization, you can theoretically use the shareable libraries to collaborate with coworkers, or many of you are in the press, being able to work with people on stories if you're doing background research on a story together, those sorts of things. And the idea in the long term is that when you have individuals and groups of people working together using a system like ours, you'd be able to do more than just provide a nice collaborative productivity tool, which is what Scribble is essentially today, but you'd be able to go many steps beyond that and sort of say, okay, now that all the information is actually being put in a single place, we can do some interesting content analysis on it and be able to do some interesting things like make recommendations on what might be useful to you in the future. That's really the powerful, sexy stuff that I think folks we'll look forward to in terms of making your search and your research much easier, because it'll actually bring content to you in the future, rather than you having to continuously going back to Google and places like that to find the information that you need. So as I mentioned a few minutes ago, when we did our public beta launch in May, we actually basically got a lot of feedback. We got written up by a number of great tech and startup blogs, and many people, thousands of people signed up for the service. And these are the kinds of things that consumers were saying after they signed up and started using us. So I won't read through all of them, because you're very capable of doing that, but just to point out a couple of highlights that I'd like. The teal box there in the far corner, basically somebody saying at a small startup in Boston that they really liked what we had, and they wanted to use us to be able to coordinate and collaborate on articles they were researching. And they switched from Evernote to do that, because they felt that the way that we provided a mechanism to share articles within a group was better. So we had that. We have other people making comparisons to Delicious and saying that the fact that we can provide annotations and other sort of capabilities makes this a really great research tool for folks on the web, and kind of a very positive comparison to Delicious there. And this is one of my personal favorites, because it's very emotional, I think, in a way. This person really loved what we did, and they compared us to Pandora in sort of the magic of the product. And so we hope that you try it out and that you feel the same way, but at the very least, there are some folks out in the consumer market who felt that way about the version that we launched in May. And that's a web service, so that's something that you can use on your desktop through your browser. Specifically within the education market, which is going to be an important focus for us for the next year, there have been things that people have been saying about what we launched in May of last year that I think are sort of just worth mentioning here real quick. So Scribble being a great tool for college, it being really a green concept because it basically prevents you from having to print a lot of articles out in order to be able to mark them up by hand. This person in the middle here was talking about how if they just found Scribble a little bit earlier, it would have saved them a lot of time and effort in terms of the work that they did for law school papers. And like I said earlier, this is something that I personally felt like I needed in grad school, and that was part of the inspiration for starting Scribble. And what we found is that teachers, students, professors, folks at universities, people in school districts have been emailing us in the latter half of 2011 asking for specific versions of Scribble that would be appropriate for student use, will be appropriate for people in university settings, et cetera. And so it's going to be a big focus for us going forward in 2012 to provide that and do that. And we have some sort of other sort of things that we'll say about that as well. But that's one of the main places where the value that we provide and the things that people like about us are very obvious. So what's going to happen going forward, aside from some of those things, is that we are actually, today, I think about an hour and a half ago, flipped the switch on Scribble for iPad. And Scribble for iPad is a web app that's been optimized for the iPad touch interface. So it's very exciting. It's live now. You can go to scribble.com and you'll see that the homepage has been changed, and now we'll give you some instructions on how you can start using Scribble for iPad. I guess the key points about Scribble for iPad are the following. First of all, it's not an installable traditional app that you download and install from the App Store, so there's none of that sort of process involved. It's something you can start using right away by just going to the website and following the instructions to add a bookmarklet to Safari in iPad. And the benefit there is that by doing it this way, you can actually annotate web pages in mobile Safari, which you can't do today really any other way. And so we're the first folks to really provide a fully featured annotation tool to be able to mark up documents, mark up web pages as you're browsing and researching on the web. So you find an interesting article, for example, today, we're all at CES. Throughout the week, there's going to be many press announcements, there's going to be lots of articles, and you may find that there's lots of great things that you want to be able to sort of quickly mark and say, this is really interesting, this is a good fact, I want to put this into a story, for example. If you use this, you can actually pull up the toolbar whenever you find an interesting article that's been published to the web, mark it up, and then save that to your personal library, which you can get back to when you need to, when you're looking to do research and follow up on those stories. So it's not an installable app, it's a HTML5 web app. It can be used directly through mobile Safari. The other thing that's worth mentioning is that because it's an HTML5 app, we have some benefits. For example, we're using CSS3, and that means that it provides much more of that sort of rich iOS, Apple type of a user experience where you get all the nice rounded corners and the gradients and the transitions and things like that. So we're really trying to meet a very high bar when it comes to user experience and usability, and being able to build this on HTML5 really allows us to do that. In the future, we'll probably be adding some additional capabilities beyond just using CSS3 that are mainstays of HTML5, and that'll be improved over time. What we've launched today, we're very proud of, but it's a first release, and we're going to be rolling on it obviously over time. So just a couple of quick things to point out, and then I'll do a demo of this new thing that we've just launched. So for consumers, it's worth mentioning that Google's AdMob did a study of tablet users last year, and they found, unsurprisingly, probably something that's kind of like obvious to many of us, that one of the main activities that people use tablets for is, of course, researching and reading news on the go. And you can just see the numbers here. 78% of users surveyed said that they use their tablets for research, and 61% for reading news and news online. So with those numbers, we think that we are actually providing something that is going to be potentially very game-changing for a lot of people that, frankly, consume information on tablets, specifically the iPad. As I mentioned earlier, aside from just the consumer market, education is a big sort of focus for us, and we think that folks in school are going to be sort of big appreciators of what we're doing today. I won't read through all these, but you can generally get a sense here of what's happening, right? So in the education market, there are lots of great things happening in terms of mobile devices and mobile computing. These facts basically sort of talk about how, particularly in primary and secondary education, there's been a move towards tablets, specifically iOS and iPad specifically in the first wave. I'm sure there'll be additional waves that will come through, on Android tablets, for example. But the idea here is that there's, a pretty big movement in the education community to be able to really leverage these sorts of devices. And we think that being able to do what we do, we can make a big contribution to teachers, professors, students, etc., both in secondary and in primary education. I've just tossed in this little fun fact. It's not really related to what we're doing today for tablet stuff, but it's kind of nice to sort of see that what we're doing has some historical context, but and it's rooted to some extent in a company you've heard of by a founder that you've heard of. Basically, this is Larry Page, the co-founder of Google, as everybody knows. And an interesting fact that a lot of people don't know is that when they first started working on Google, they were not actually looking to build a search engine. They were actually looking to do something that was more related to web annotation. And it turned out that their motivation for doing that was they wanted to know that if people were going to be annotating the web, how is it that you would point what annotations or what annotated web pages were most worth looking at? And that's when they got into the question of, well, how do you rank all that, and how do you actually get people to direct people to the right types of web pages with the right comments? And that's what led them eventually to PageRank, to be able to make those search results relevant and stack rank them properly. So again, not directly relevant to what we're doing, but it's kind of a fun historical fact that web annotation actually has its roots in some other places that people may not realize. So I'll jump into a demo so you can see what we just launched, and then we'll take some questions if that works. Okay. So turn up the volume here a little bit because I think I'm not hearing myself very well. Maybe that's better. Okay. Cool. Okay. Bear with us. First press conference ever. Okay. So here I am. The demo is basically set up to show. So we decided to pick sort of a fun topic, which is basically film and film theory. So what I'm going to do here is pretend that I'm somebody that's really interested in films and actors and actresses, and I'm researching the web, looking for information about that. So here I am at a Wikipedia page, and this is an article that I might want to mark up. So I'm going to click on. You'll see here in the top left corner from your angle, there's a Scribble toolbar bookmarklet. And what will happen is when I click on that, you'll actually see a little message that will come up, and then the Scribble toolbar will load on top of the page. Okay. Now you'll notice that the toolbar has a number of buttons. It has a logo. It has a little blue man or user icon. When that's lit up blue, that means you're signed in, which we are currently into this demo. There's a library icon, which will take us to your personal library, which I mentioned before is where everything gets saved that you can go back and look at. You can highlight, you can add notes, you can change the text color, you can underline. You can also bold and do some other things that I'll show you if you'd like to see it. And there's some other features that will be obvious when I go through the demo here. But basically the idea is that you can make a selection, press the highlighter button, and a highlight gets applied. You can also go ahead and do that with other colors if you wanted to. For example, we give you a rich color palette. Oops. One second. So let's do this. So you can see basically using the color palette, we've got 32 different colors that you can use to annotate however you like. You can go through and make the selections and apply the highlights. If you felt like something was really noteworthy, and I'm doing this kind of willy-nilly, but if you were to actually really focus on this for your own work, obviously it would mean a lot more in terms of the example. But let's say hypothetically, this stretch of text was noteworthy, you wanted to say something about it. You can make that selection, click the note button, and a little note pops up. Now you can go in by clicking on the note and make some comments, blah, blah, blah. And basically the toolbar stays with you as you scroll throughout the page. So the tools are always at hand whenever you need them to make any comments or any annotations. The notes and the annotations obviously stay fixed in place. Part of what we did in building this version of Scribble was we wanted to make it touch appropriate, so you can see basically that you can use your finger as I'm doing here to just move the note around. You can obviously do other things like resize the note. You should be able to change the color of the note if you need to, etc. So the whole idea is that right at your fingertips, you've got these rich annotation tools. It's really simple, it's really intuitive, and it makes it much easier for you to mark up things as you go along. There are other things that I mentioned, which I won't get into all the details, but for example, you can underline, you can bold, you can strike through, and you can italicize. So we're just going to go ahead and underline this little stretch of text, and you can see that there at the bottom. So when you've made these annotations, one of the things you might want to do is look at a clean copy of the page without any of the annotations, which you can do by toggling on and off the hide and show button. We have the concept of a legend, which means that you can basically pull up and click on the legend button, which is there to the right of the eyeball, and that will toggle on and off the legend. Now, the purpose of a legend from our perspective is for you to be able to say that certain highlights and colors might be made by a certain person, other ones might be made by somebody else, etc., etc. You can use it however you like. You can also grab a permalink if you like, which is what that link icon is to the left of the share icon or the envelope. I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead a little bit to just saving this page so you can see what the save process looks like. So when you click on the save button, you have the ability to save as, which is sort of familiar terminology for folks that are used to obviously doing word processors in Microsoft Word. And here you can basically go ahead and save the page, or you can apply tags. It turns out that because I've already set up this account and I have a demo going, there are certain things that I could theoretically tag. So if this was an article about actors, I could click that and apply that tag. If I wanted to apply other tags, I can just start typing, and it'll do a type ahead sort of completion or suggestion of tags that are available in the library, and you can apply those. When you're done, you click save. What ends up happening here is the page along with all the annotations get saved to, as I mentioned earlier, your personal library, and then I'll take you to the library so you can take a look at it and see how it works and how it looks. So once it's done saving, it'll give you a little confirmation message saying that it's been saved successfully. And there's two ways you can get your library. You can either navigate directly to our website and log into your account, or you can just simply click on the library button, which I did very fast there, and it'll automatically open up a new browser tab and take you there. So you'll see now that these are all the different pages that have been saved. This is the one that we just saved. These are the ones that were saved earlier just for this demo. And those are all the tags that you see on the far end of there. Now, you can quickly filter all the things that are in the library based on the tags that are shown on the left. So for example, if I wanted to only look at the articles or the pages that have been tagged actor, I can click on that. You'll see that it gets checked over there, and the entire library gets quickly and magically filtered down to just the content that's been tagged actor. You can turn that off. You can do searching. So remember I mentioned that we do full text indexing of all the content. So let's say you're doing a ton of research. You've saved 100 articles. You're not going to want to go through all of them, right? You're going to want to quickly be able to do a search like you do in Gmail or in Google and be able to get just the pages back that match. So for example, I believe earlier I may have saved a page about Tom Hanks. If I do a search for Tom, it should go, oops, maybe I didn't save that. One second. Let's make something else then. Well, let's do this. Okay, so live demo, potential problem with the search, which we'll fix. But the idea is that the content is full text index. So when you do a simple search, you should be able to find a needle in a haystack. And I could actually switch to the desktop version, and I think you would probably see that it's working there. There might be some issue with the iPad version that we just launched. So I'm just going to switch here and see if this actually helps. And if it doesn't, then there's a problem with the search that we'll fix later tonight. Yep. Okay. So you'll have to take my word for it, and we'll have it fixed so you can start using it properly with the search. But the idea there is that the search works. You can trust me on that because it works for the desktop version. And the iPad version basically mimics a lot of that. The user interface is different. It looks much more like an iPad thing. You've got the tags, you've got all pages that have been saved. And when you pull any of them back up, so for example, if we just click on the top entry in the library, it'll basically open up that page in the browser tab. And what you'll see is the page that was saved with all the annotations and the toolbar at the top. And if you click the arrow that's on the right-hand side there, it'll actually pop down some metadata about the page. So for example, the tags that we added, which are actor and classic films, are all there. You can then add more tags later, or you can add comments and whatnot. We also capture a link back to the original page. So for example, if you look at underneath the arrow, there's a link that says original page. If you click on that, it'll actually navigate you back to the original page without any annotations. This is really valuable and important for places where there's a lot of dynamic content on the page that you've saved. So if you want to look at what that page looks like now, you can click on that link and it'll take you back to that. So that's basically how the iPad for Scribble for iPad works. There's sort of other bells and whistles I can talk about, but why don't I stop here and basically just open up for Q&A and see if you have any questions. Happy to answer any questions you have about us as a startup or our team or what we launched before or even what we're launching today. I think he was first.
Will that be available for Android?
So it's funny, technically what we built and released today should work on Android, but we haven't tested for it or optimized for it. So technologically it's not a big leap from where we are today, but I wouldn't tell you to depend on it until we've actually had a chance to do that.
Does it require a digital pen or a stylus for it?
It does not require it, but you didn't bring your stylus by any chance, did you?
Not on me. No.
Not on you, okay. So we have actually used a stylus with it, so you can use a stylus for part of it. It's not optimized for that, so when we do something that's related to styluses that's optimized, it'll be a little bit different. So for example, in the future, we're thinking about making it so that when you're able to use a stylus, you can actually just literally go through and highlight the way that you're highlighting in the physical world on a real piece of paper. That won't work today, because you still have to deal with the touch interface to be able to make the selection. So the short answer is not yet, but yes, in the future we'll work on that, particularly if it's important to folks.
How much does the toolbar slow it down?
It's pretty minified JavaScript, so we haven't really seen a problem.
Okay. Have you done any benchmarking testing?
Maybe I could defer to Andy, our CTO, to see if he's got any answers on that. Have you done any benchmarking? He's asking.
Yeah, we haven't done any benchmarking as far as if it slows down the pages.
Yeah, but for what it's worth, I'm pretty picky, and whenever it slows things down, if it slows things down, I'm pretty, I'm pretty demanding that we try to move things, make things faster. But it's usually the issue in terms of speed performance is not really that the bookmark that slows down the browsing of the page. That's never really been an issue. Even since our launch in May on just the desktop version, that's not the issue. The only things that we've ever sort of worried about and think about are, is the save happening fast enough? When you go to the library, are the pages loading quickly enough? In terms of the bookmark that's slowing down the browser, I don't think we've really seen that for either a really long time or not recent memory.
Is there a limit to how much you can store with a Scribble account?
Yes, so right now we have a very basic free edition that's 125 megs of storage. We actually, just before the holidays, I think made some changes that will make that 125 megs go further in terms of how efficient the storage space is. What we're going to be doing is to basically meet the requests that people have made of us to be able to provide more storage either for free or for cheap. So we're going to do something similar probably to like what Dropbox does, for example, where if you invite somebody and they sign up, then you kind of get some additional storage. We'll probably have some sort of free incentives like that. And then in terms of being able to upgrade to a gig or more, there'll probably be some cost-effective storage upgrades that we'll be releasing sometime in the next couple of months. Sometime by the summer at the latest.
And it sits between the iPad and desktop versions?
Yeah, well, in this case, it's really it's pulling from the same place. It's just that you're seeing it in a different shell, basically, for the iPad, because it's an HTML5 app that we optimized for this, but it's basically the same thing right now. When we develop mobile apps that are installable like from the App Store, then there'll be a question of, is it syncing from the local copy to the server and all that, but we're not in that stage yet. We'll do that probably sometime later this year as well.
Does the user have control over its database as far as what's saved? Like, can they get rid of stuff that they searched for before it's obliterated, or is it saved in a database somewhere in Scribble forever?
So you can delete content from your library, and I didn't demo that because it's kind of a basic thing, and it's actually not enabled here, but on the desktop version you can actually do that. So you can delete stuff out of your library and it's gone. It doesn't count against your quota anymore, so you don't have to worry about kind of stuff sticking around eating at your storage quota.
Okay, yeah, but yeah, it's all completely erased from just the user's database or from yours?
I think, yeah, it'll be gone from everything. I don't know if there's any reason we would retain it. I mean, I think we retain backup for a period of time so that if somebody has lost something, they need to get it back.
And then get it back. Okay.
Yeah, but you're asking whether or not when you get rid of it, is it really gone? I think that there's a,
Not immediately. There's a cleanup process that we have. It'll clean extra files after a while.
yes,
Why can't I get it on my iPhone?
because we haven't optimized it for the iPhone.
Are you ready to?
You know, nobody's really asked us specifically for the iPhone for this version. They've asked more for an app that you can install, but we can. I mean, I think it's just a hop, skip, and a jump from where we are now. I think we probably did a lot of the work to get to this stage. I think to get to that stage would be a shorter hop than we've done so far.
Yeah.
So we can. Do you want that?
Yes.
Okay.
I do.
Great. We'll add it to the list to work on.
Thank you.
Great. Anything else? Yes.
What sharing features do you have planned for the future?
Oh, great question. So when you start using it now, you'll notice that basically it's a very sort of rudimentary sharing via email. So I didn't demo it, but I can if you want to see it. The idea is that when you click on this share button in the toolbar, somebody went to sleep here. The share button on the toolbar, it'll actually pull up a window. Oops. This is a demo kind of created. So once I verify the email address, it'll basically pull up a window that looks very similar to the save window. And it will allow you to put in somebody's email address and fill out some of the same fields like comments and whatnot. But when you do that, it allows you to put in an email address of a recipient, and that recipient will get a copy, a link to the annotated page. When they click on it, it will bring them back to that annotated page. In the future, what we're planning to do is integrate deeply with sort of Facebook and Twitter particularly, and sort of we'll look at doing sort of more broad stuff with other social networks if it's useful, like with LinkedIn or something like that. But you know, the most urgent ones are usually Facebook and Twitter at this stage. So we're going to do that. We've actually already started doing some of the work on Facebook, but we expect that that sort of like social media sharing is going to be pretty important to both our viral growth and for the users to be able to share their content with other people and see their comments.
We have permalinks as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So what we do have also is this. The thing that's to the left of the envelope is a permalink icon. And what that does is when you click on it, it actually will basically generate a permalink that you can then use to share over Twitter and Facebook if you want to. So you can post it to your Facebook page, for example, and see there it is. You can just go ahead and copy it if you want. You get the idea. But you can copy it basically and then take that permalink and put it up on Facebook, for example, and then share your comments broadly with people that way if you like.
So if, okay, going back to like database housing and things like that.
Sure.
Suppose you share with somebody, and then you delete it. Does that person still have access to it that you sent it to, or is it they were just linked into your account? Because the reason, I mean, if they're going to have a certain amount of space that they can use,
Sure.
is that up, is that uploading to their storage, or is it they just linked into your storage?
So I'll answer a little bit, and then maybe Andy can jump in if he's got any specific stuff to correct me on. The major change that we made right before the holidays actually sort of changed the paradigm a little bit. So what happens now is when you share with somebody, it's sort of like Google Docs, where if I have a page I annotate and I share with you, you're getting basically a link back to that page. So you're getting a shortcut to that page. It's basically counting against my storage because I'm sharing it with you. I'm the owner of that document essentially, to use Google Docs parlance. And if I delete it, then it would be gone. Just like if I deleted it in Google Docs, you wouldn't have access to it anymore. I have the ability to be able to say whether or not I want other people to be able to take a copy of it. So because I may or may not, depending on how I'm deciding to use that page. So if I do give you the ability to make a copy of it, then if you make a copy of it, then that copy would be yours.
Okay, and then it's traced back to the origin. Like there's a kind of like a code that gives its point of origin. Somebody sends me something that's annotated,
Sure.
and they delete it. I still have it in my storage, and it's counted against my storage. Is there a way to verify where it came from?
I mean, we would know on the database, but I don't know if we've exposed that.
It still points to the original URL that it was captured from.
Right.
But I don't know. there are probably some pointers back to the fact that the user and original.
The original document was, yeah.
I mean, it's still, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I mean, just as long as it has a
Yeah.
point of origin. And the other thing I had a question was, image capture, you were talking about sharing media and things like that. Is there any plans for like video capture and things like that?
Not now. You know, it's not been one of the things that people have requested of us. I think people are still wanting us to work on a lot of the things related to just being able to treat the page like a document, right? So we're focused mostly on sort of the textual, and there's actually been some requests for being able to do things with images. So I think text and images are at first. Video, I think, is something that people have asked us very much for, so it's not on the short-term horizon.
Are you worried at all about Evernote or some of these other guys kind of infringing on your territory?
It's a good
Sketch
question.
and stuff like that.
Yeah, I haven't used Sketch very much, but my understanding is it's primarily around annotation of images. And you know, Evernote is I mean, to show you the example of somebody who switched over, and actually a couple of weeks ago, there's somebody from an ad agency in New York that also did the same thing. They switched over from Evernote. So those stories are always great because you know we have 1% of the funding of Evernote, and we have they're obviously 10 million users and huge. So it's not really an apples to apples comparison from a variety of perspectives. But the way we think about it is that they're actually pretty different uses in many ways. So Evernote, you can just tell based on their logo, right? It's an elephant. They're all about remembering, and they talk about remembering everything and being your second brain in the cloud. And they would let you handle all kinds of different file formats. And in a way, aside from note-taking, they're sort of representing that they are an online storage system, right? And that's great. I think they're great. They've done a fantastic job. And I think in some ways they make our job easier when we talk about building what we're building. But it's very different from the kind of flow, the workflow-oriented business that we're building, right? So some of the things that I didn't talk about that would really make the contrast stark would be things like, one of the things that we have that we're working on is the ability to take all of your content in your library and distill it down into just a report that has just the important pieces that are there, right? Those are steps in a workflow from the point at which you finish your Google search and you've done all your research and whatnot, to the point at which you're actually going to be producing your deliverable, your paper, or your presentation, whatever it is. To be able to do that workflow, there's a lot of things that we're going to focus on that, at least right now, is really part of, I think, the Evernote ecosystem. So the short answer is we're focused on research and they're focused on remembering. And I think that on the perimeter there may be some overlap, but it's fairly different, and the use cases are fairly different. I think the people who use Evernote, who may switch to us or like us, have a clear need for something that we do, obviously, that's different, better than what they get at Evernote. But I also think that one of the great things about Evernote is that they've opened up their ecosystem. So there's really no reason why there has to be sort of a direct conflict. We will probably build, we've been asked before by users to build some sort of API-oriented connection or app that would interoperate with Evernote, which we'd be very happy to do. We just haven't gotten around to it yet. So I think of it more like an opportunity to jump onto a huge user base where we can provide something very deep and specialized. And a lot of apps have done that with Evernote, right? They've got a lot of people in their trunk, which is their platform, that do that kind of thing. Anyone else? No? Thank you very much for coming. I really appreciate it. To celebrate, we have some champagne and some food that we ordered for you, so please have some and celebrate with us, and please help us spread the word. We're looking for a really exciting year this year.